Hi, I'm Brian A. Boyson, Peak Performance Sales Strategist and Coach at SAP. And thanks for tuning in to the Millennial Sales Life, episode 12, titled, Are You Managing Up? Look, this is a very big deal in any job, but especially as a young salesperson or a millennial starting to develop in their career. You're gonna hear me talk a lot about knowing your customer in sales, right? And that's very, very important. And your first job in sales, well, guess who your number one customer is? Your sales vice president, your manager, your sales director, whatever title they have, whoever it is that you're reporting into is your number one customer, okay? So that's the first thing, all right? What I'm gonna talk to you about today is 5 steps to managing up, right? I'll talk about the challenges and give you some stories, but the 5 steps are listen and take notes, right? The second one is ask and clarify. The third is define a clear communication channel. And the fourth is execute. And then the fifth is do everything else next, all right? So we're gonna go over those 5. So, are you managing up? Right? So I think a lot of the things that I coach and a lot of issues and challenges that I see are around this topic. And especially for me, I was challenged with it starting out my career as well. So you really got to focus on it and get good at it if you want to have good working relationships with your sales vice presidents and really make the most effective partnership together. All right. So some of the challenges come around 3 areas. Number 1 is expectations. Number 2 is communication. And number 3 is execution, right? So expectations, communication, and execution. Those are the 3 biggest challenges that I see. And what you really need to do is understand what the sales vice president's expectations are, right? I've worked for a lot of good sales vice presidents, a lot of great sales vice presidents, a lot of not so great sales vice presidents, but none of that matters, right? It's not about them, it's about you and how you show up and how you interact with them. So people have different styles. Some managers are going to be, let you run wild. Some managers are going to be more micromanagement style. Some are more about the data and the numbers. Some are more about, how much revenue you close. So you really got to understand what their expectations are, right? So the second piece is around communication. A lot of the times that's where it's broken down, that the expectations aren't clear or defined, and then the communication channels aren't open or, articulating what it is that you're doing in a clear way so that they understand, right? So that's the second biggest thing I see is that we're not communicating in the proper fashion, how our sales vice president likes to see it, and what their expectations are, right? And the third one is execution, right? Sometimes we just let things slip, right? And we don't execute on things that we may think aren't important, but are maybe very important to our manager. So understanding what the expectation is, establishing that clear communication channel, and then really executing against those items every single time, doing what you said you were gonna do and do it in a way that the manager can see that action is something that is another big challenge area around that, right? So what are the 5 things that you can do to make this easier for you so you can have great relationships with your managers, manage up, and have a good working relationship, right? So the 5 things you can do is, number 1, listen and take notes, right? It's one thing to listen to someone speaking to you and have them hear them what their say what their expectations are. Is another thing to listen to it, take notes, internalize it, and understand it, right? The second thing you can do is ask and clarify. Ask questions and ask for clarification if you don't understand something. Because the worst thing you can do is have a meeting, listen to your manager, and then walk away and not really be sure of what they actually meant or how they want that done, or be in a gray zone that you don't understand what you have to do. That's the worst place to be in, right? So don't be afraid to ask the questions and clarify. The third is define a clear communication channel. Make sure that however it is that you're going to communicate, whether it's a weekly one-on-one, whether it's an email every Friday, whatever the communication channel is, make sure that you have alignment on how you're going to do that, so he understands or she understands what you're doing, and it's a clear communication channel back and forth. The fourth one is execute. I think we talked about this earlier, but once you understand everything and you've listened, you've taken notes, okay, and you've asked and clarified and you've got that clear communication channel, you got to go out and execute. If you don't execute, then none of the other steps matter, right? So make sure you do the things that are important, and then you show and highlight those back, right? And then the fifth step that you can do is do everything else next, right? So satisfy your number one customer, who's your manager. Make sure you're hitting all their expectations and communicating with them in the way that they want to be communicated with. And then once you have all that taken care of, then work on developing your own style and working in your secret sauce, because that's very important for you to develop along your sales career, to make sure that you're authentic and you're working the way that how you show up in the world, right? So that's important, but do all that next after you help manage up. All right, so I'll just share three lessons or stories with you on how this affected me. My first job out of college, I worked for a big tech company here in the Boston area, and I was having trouble following up on little things that I was missing in my one-on-ones. And this became an issue week after week after week, and so my manager literally came into my cube and sat down next to me and gave me prescriptive instructions. He said, get out your notebook, get out a pen, write the date at the top of the page, write things to do, and then he dictated it to me, right? And I got the message loud and clear that I wasn't showing up and taking care of the little things. So every single day, and actually 10 years later, I still have that to-do list that I sit down and do to make sure that I can capture everything. It's a little different now than it was back then, but it's still the same thing, right? So that really helped me to get things done and to listen and to communicate. The second one was when I got to SAP. I had a sales manager that was asking me about my customers and the contracts, and did I have them and did I know about them yet? And it was my first couple weeks on the job, and I wasn't able to get the contracts, and I didn't really know all the information yet. And she kept telling me, hey, so tell me about the contract situation now. And I said, well, I'm not really sure yet. I'm not mapped in CRM and I haven't got them yet. And she's like, okay, next week, tell me about the contracts and what the status is. And I'm like, well, I'm still not mapped yet. So, this became an issue for me, where in the third one-on-one, it was obviously I wasn't delivering on what the ask was, and I didn't have the sense of urgency around it. So I got some clear feedback, which didn't go so well for me, but I got that fire to do whatever it took to get the contracts. I found out that we had them in our headquarters, and I actually flew down there, got all the paper contracts, and came into the next week's one-on-one with them in hand, and make sure I took care of that. And the last is just understand their job, right? It's hard enough to manage ourselves as one person, and they're managing 6 to 8 to 10 people sometimes, right? And so you really gotta put information and be mindful of their time and understand their job to help them do their job, right? And that's what it all is. We're all a team, and if we can make it easy for them to digest information that we're doing out there, that they can manage up to their leadership and show that they have a handle on the business, then that's gonna work for everybody. So that's it. Managing up, 5 things that you can do are: number 1, listen and take notes. Number 2, ask and clarify. Number 3, define a clear communication channel. Number 4, execute. Number 5, do everything else next. I hope you enjoyed that. Please like this, share this, comment, engage. Love to hear from you. And make sure that you have a good strategy in managing up. It's gonna make all the difference. It's gonna really help you be successful. I'll leave you with what I always leave you with. Rise up every day of your life, set a new standard, make you move, and become who you are.